Do routine accounting tasks make you feel invisible? Then step up and earn your Certified Management Accountant certification. Become a CMA and you'll master the 12 most critical practice areas of management accounting. Skills that will make the routine tasks of accounting a thing of the past and strategic challenges a thing of the present. So step up, earn your CMA, and show you have the skills it takes to be seen and recognized. Discover how to become a CMA at cmacertification.org.
So transitioning from being a solo bachelor to settling down into an official marriage is definitely quite a thing. Apart from all the emotional, psychological, lifestyle changes that you have to go through where two assimilates into one, now you really have to sit down and have serious conversations about money. So no more where to go for cafe lah, what to do into the future lah, where to travel. Now you really got to sit down and plan your finances. So how should you as a couple plan your finances for a young family? What are some best practices, real concerns, trade-offs that we all have to grapple with to create that magical family experience that many may crave deep down? So welcome home as we discuss all these and more. Welcome to a special mini-series of Providend Chills with TFC. In this series, we'll be bringing on a team of wealth managers and financial professionals with varied life experiences to share about topics we believe you will be interested in. Definitely, this series is sponsored by Providend, if you cannot yet tell, Singapore's first fee-only wealth advisory firm, meaning all their clients pay them a fixed fee for planning their finances. They do not accept any fees or compensation from product providers at all, and with this model, they believe there will be no conflict of interest. In today's episode, since everybody sees family differently, I think we'll have a great time discussing this. So joining me on this banter about best practices and practical trade-offs, we have a duo that did not start their careers out in the financial world. In Mandarin, we term this halfway monks, 半路出家, okay? Living their highly paid careers in audit and aviation to join this space of wealth management and financial planning. So let's welcome Yu Yong Cheng, young dads, personal finance enthusiasts, wealth management professionals from Providend.
You know, when you're young, you want to do all these things, you're alone, and then you have a certain way, a certain outlook of life, certain way to manage your money. Right? But then when you transit into the reality of a family, okay, so now that you have decided to set up a family, two of you come together, whether you have kids or not, that's another big question mark.
Yes.
How does this whole personal finance strategy then change? Because it's no longer just you, right?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. You transit, but you cannot fully transit into somebody new. What I meant is that, for example, you might want to be a bit more prudent in your investment philosophy, but maybe some part of you still want to trade stocks. It's fine. I guess it's about striking a balance to think about it as what is material for my financial life my financial life, my family financial life in the next 5 to 10 years, and then choose something that is a reliable way to get returns, but you can still continue to use what we call like play money. In Providend, we say play money for you to still enjoy that as a hobby, as an interest. But a lot of things actually started with conversation. I would say, one party will need to initiate that conversation to spark off, to start thinking about setting goals, to think about how do we structure both your finance together, even think about family goals, like, whether you want a child or not. Do you all are planning to have children? Where do you stay? Questions like this have to pop out. But I will always start off by giving credit to that person who want to initiate that, the partner, because it's not easy. It's not easy to have to talk about money. Because, getting together, going to a marriage, I think the first conversation that they will have to talk about money is about wedding budget. Right? And that's only I would say a small part of it, but but we have gone through that phase where even if it's a small part, it can create some drama lah. Yeah. So then if we got
some
to,
only
some drama, because that drama is not just you and me and my wife. It also involves two other families, right? So who to contribute how much ang bao, and then you also have who to invite and all this. So some drama. I mean, the drama will stop after the wedding is over.
That's drama part 1, right?
Yeah, drama part 1.
And then all these other things then come in.
Yes. So it's hard because imagine we need to magnify this topic from wedding, which is a one-day event, to a lifelong conversation about having to set goals for the families. How do we manage the common expenses that's coming in? I think if we even deep dive into insurance, into how do we combine our wealth to invest. These are tough topics, man. Very tough.
So you think couples should combine their wealth? Is that what I'm hearing?
I don't think it is a must. In my opinion, I think there are two perspectives that could give benefit to combining wealth. Number one, of course, from a financial perspective, is that a bigger asset base, you can do more. It compounds faster. Yeah, rather than one doing something, the other one doing. Yeah, you don't have really a good idea of what each other are doing. From a relationship point of view, if you combine wealth, more likely you will talk about what do you want the wealth to be. I would say about, for example, like setting goals, right? Yeah, I think in a marriage, it's good to have a common goal. A couple can work towards too, and it strengthens the marriage. Yeah, because you have accountability. You have an accountability partner to say that if I were to spend 500 on we were talking about iPad on our way here, right? If I'm spending the new iPad launch
yeah,
is
purple
coming,
color one,
yes. Then you start thinking, then if you were managing your own finance, I think the thinking is I just spend I spend because it's money that I earn. But if you were to combine together, then you will have, maybe the couple will have a portion and say that, okay, this X dollar is savings towards our common goal. If I want to buy the iPad, then I need to find my money somewhere. So then you are accountable to your partner, and along the way, as both are both accountable to each other, I think the relationship gets stronger. Yeah. But in our experience, as we are working with clients, we also have couples who choose not to plan together. And it's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with it. Because number one, they could just be very used to doing it. Yeah, just, for the last 10 years, last 15 years, we are used to it. They might have also some form of planning together, finance. Joint account is one. That's quite simple. Yeah, they might also come to a conclusion that maybe my investment philosophy is different from my husband, for example. Husband maybe, one spouse like to trade stocks, the other one feel that maybe I prefer more safe instruments and all this. There could also be different levels of interest. Yeah, one is more into finance, the other one is not. So various reasons.
Of course.
At the end of the day,
but the reality is, when you decide to go into a union, right? Two of you come together, you decide to go into a union. Finance is just an extension of the union, essentially, right? Because what I'm hearing is like, oh yeah, you can manage together, you can also manage separately. Yeah, that's the reality, right? But when you decide to come together, there is some sort of commitment to each other as a union entity. But at the same time, how do you retain your individualism? To me, that is always that balance, right? Like how do you go about doing it? So I want to hear like what you guys think about it, because if you manage everything together, then it becomes you are like just committed to this thing already. Like this is a union and there's no more individuality. Like even buy iPad $500, you still need to think. It's like what kind of, it sounds super painful. I mean, reality, I feel like so painful. But then if you manage separately, then it does not really feel like this is an extension of this like marriage and family and whatnot. Right? So what do you think?
So personally, I don't think that you really need to combine. And it doesn't mean that by not combining, it's not an extension. So this not only applies to finance, but it also applies to anything. Your wife likes to exercise, you like to sleep at home, your wife likes to eat a certain diet. But at the end of the day, you want to have this common understanding on where are we heading. So I would say, firstly, when you're transitioning from an individual to a couple, is that you want to have this change in mindset. You're moving from a single unit to a family unit, and you got to recognize that your decisions actually impact another party, and even more so if you have kids. So it's always a question of if you're going to plan together, how is this going to impact us as a family? If you want to plan separately, and if you want to, one party wants to work until 65, he wants to spend more now on gadgets, whereas the other party wants to retire as soon as possible. as long as I feel you have this open conversation, I feel that you want to still plan. At the end of the day, the plan can be separate. When it comes to execution, it can be together, it can be separate. I think that's fine. But the main thing is you want to be open, you want to be honest with one another, and you want to sort of define goals because you still want to respect this individuality. It doesn't mean that marriage means that, okay, you follow my style or I follow your style. Yeah, but I always feel the communication and the honesty with one another and sitting down to plan together, it's very important.
Yeah, I agree with Chin Yu. I think union is in substance, that's most important, rather than forcing union in the form. Like if both parties are not happy, not comfortable putting wealth together, then in a sense, this is a form, right? Putting money together is a form. But if, like Chin Yu mentioned, if there's no communication, no understanding about where this is going, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. So it's important to have union in substance more than form.
Yeah, but although I would say, there are certain aspects that you can't run away from planning together.
Like what? Yeah.
Children,
Okay.
Yes.
It cannot be, okay, so for example, if you say one party wants to go spend a lot of money on iPads and the other wants to save more money so that this person can enjoy more and spend more in the future, I think that's possible. But it's not possible to say, okay, I want my daughter or my son to go a certain direction, whereas the other party, has other plans for him. So I think, children is one example. How much you want to spend on education, this can vary quite a bit. Preschool itself can range from a few $100s a month to a few $1,000s, all the way to tertiary education. These are the ones that usually we would recommend to really sit down and figure out how do we, firstly, what do you want to achieve, and then how do you want to get there?
Because essentially, if you think about it, there's a myriad of like goals out there. You can achieve all these different things that you want to achieve, right? And choices is a thing these days, right? There's a lot of possibilities out there, right? And we cannot discount that. And exactly when you're talking about it, right? I just want to be clear that there are a lot of perspectives in this way of planning family finances. Again, everything be together, separate, half, 30-50, whatever, right? So there are a lot of ideas here, and we can talk about perspectives and it's best practices, and not so much about like, you should just do this, or no, this is like wrong, and all those kind of things, right? But on that basis of wanting to plan, anything that is a plan has a goal, right? There must be a goal that we're trying to head towards. So when we come together in this marriage, what are some common goals that people plan for?
I think the very common goals...
kids, like you pointed out, kids.
Yeah, correct. So, kids is one. We are talking about, major goals. So kids, expenses, that's one. Of course, everybody needs to retire one day. It's not possible for you to keep working. So I think that's the other...
I challenge that notion. but that's a long story for another day.
Really?
Can you keep
Another
working
episode.
forever? Wow,
No, sometimes it's involuntary, Sometimes you want to keep working forever, but
then you don't
mean...
call that retire, call that retrenchment.
Financially
No.
independent.
Situational.
Sometimes it's sickness, sometimes it's
okay.
old age.
Okay,
So,
okay.
I know people who are working at the age of 80 over years old and they enjoy it, but that's also provided that they have the physical capacity to actually, continue on. So sometimes things happen, so at least you want to have a certain plan. Yeah, but even then, these days there can be quite a range of different perspective.
Yes.
Sort of gone are the days where people just accept that you're just going to work until the government's retirement age, and then you enjoy.
Yes.
Some people want to retire early, but that requires trade-offs. So if there are any, I suppose, very significant perspective, you probably want your other half to know about it as well. I think the main thing is that you don't want surprises to come along the way.
But you think surprises will come along? Okay, my view is, right, during your dating period, you guys probably should already talk about it already. So at some point in time, right, you should have clarity. Really, tell me more. Give me some examples, like personal experience, friends, clients, whatever. What surprised some of these people, like after they come together, say, I didn't know my partner actually want this.
No, I guess dating. I mean, of course, when we were in the dating phase, there's the honeymoon phase, right? The first 3 months, first 3
Where
years.
you want to eat, which cafe you want to go,
Yeah,
that kind of it. Okay.
correct. I think then that's like you right pointedly out. You know, one partner could say, okay, I mean, I'll just let it be. You know, I'll just make my girlfriend or my boyfriend happy, and then I'll just do it lah. Then because it's not that serious per se, because it's purely dating, right? But just now, like how we started this conversation, once you transit into, and what Chin Yu mentioned, transit into two individual units into one union, two people make decision and it will impact the other one, then different things start coming up, lah. You know, things like money values. Because in the past, I could be spending my own money, you know, I want to buy this bag, maybe buy gadget, I think it's fine. But if once you get together in a union, then money values, having whether is it too far apart, or whether if it's too far apart, can you all come to a kind of a common understanding of how you want, you know, money to be working out in your family life. I think that could have some surprises, because of course we have people who say, this is my money, I work so hard for it, I spend.
I think that's quite a narrative. Yes.
Correct, yeah. So I work so hard for it, I spend. I think it's fine. As long as I am putting aside X dollar to put joint fund, I think it's fine. You know, I'm doing my part. Then the other partner could be the more prudent one. Maybe he put X dollar, similar amount, but he's probably doing more savings on the side. And then you come to a stage where then whether when we want to talk about having the option to stop working, or having the option to say stop work so that I can have one parent to be at home for the kids, then the money thing starts floating up. Because one would maybe say that, you know, I'm putting a lot into this thing, and maybe the other one have not saved much. Yeah, so sometimes it can be difficult. Because when we handle couple clients, sometimes we do see quite different different level of savings. And then when we go deeper into understanding their money values, and then you see all these things start floating up. This could be a surprise to either party when they come together, but sometimes maybe they just learn to accept it, and then they do more on their part. If they are having a good career, I think if everything is smoothly going along the way, then I think it's fine. Of course, the pandemic taught us that things might not go our way, you know. Yeah. So then some of these money issues might start floating up. You know, if my job is unstable, and then, you know, one of the partner might have to, you know, pick the rest. These are, like what Chin Yu mentioned, these are not talked about earlier on. Then it becomes difficult when things that you have not planned for happen.
I think maybe I can share a personal story. So, growing up, initially both my parents have been working. So along the way, because my mom wanted to help me in my studies, she left her career to sort of support me. So you know, my dad was the sole breadwinner. So of course, continue working. And then I remember one day when he came back, and he said that he has enough of his job, you know. And actually that came as quite a big surprise to my mom. Yeah, I don't know whether they're going to hear this, but
I'm sure they're going to hear this.
Yeah, but I remember it quite clearly that there was quite a bit of stress, especially on my mom's side. You know, I suppose I sensed that, you know, in a way, then questions like, okay, you know, if you're going to leave the career, what's going to happen to all the bills? Do we have enough for retirement? And I remember in the end, she broke down crying. But of course, then we sat down together to try to, they sat down together. I can't remember how old was I. And they worked out a plan for it. Yeah, but when it, you know, really comes as a surprise, those are big decisions. You know, to suddenly say that I'm going to stop working just like that.
And that's it's quite a typical story, right? Out there, when people go through this process of, you know, discovering what they actually like, they go through their career switches, mid-career change. It's a very real thing, you know. And today, of course, a lot of families are dual income, you know, and, you know, sometimes with kids, one parent want to take a back seat, you know, whichever side, and all that, right? So those are some realities that people struggle with, right? And we're not trying to oversell certain sob stories, right? In the sense that, we don't want to over like, oh yeah, everything is a possibility, right? Everything, because your lifestyle, things will change, and many things you cannot control, right? Like pandemic, like retrenchment, company seismic shift, whatnot, right? But at least based on our preliminary talk, I think there are a few things that people are concerned about, right? Like kids, retirement, maybe housing.
Housing, yes.
Right. So these are probably the three things that Singaporeans always talk about, right? Every time I post these three content, sure, a lot of people listen, right? Because these are the things that people care about locally, so we cannot lie to ourselves.
Yeah.
What are some things that you guys think is a good practice? Let's say we start with housing. Because I feel, right, the process is housing, kids, retirement. Right? In Singapore, at least that's it sounds like that's how it is, right? In a modern
I would say it's
life,
housing, marriage.
Housing, marriage,
then kids.
Then
BTO first, right?
Okay.
BTO, then we talk about
Wait, is that how you propose?
No. I'm a very traditional guy.
Traditional means what? Kneel down with ring, everything.
Yeah, got picture.
Okay. Can I give you off?
I think when we talk about housing, I think, again, conversation. I think having an understanding. While I think it's prudent to start off with public housing, PTO or resale, I guess it's also good to understand from each other what is their property aspirations. Because, for example, one of the partner might grow up in a landed property. I do have clients who say, they grow up in landed property. It's where they have their childhood. They have a big garden to run. And one day I would envision my children to be like me in the past. A big garden, I grow up, and then, when everybody comes back, you have a good space. So they might start out with some public housing, and then slowly they envision themselves having a landed property. So then maybe the other partner grow up in public housing all the way, So again, like we talk about, it's good to have a conversation to try to understand each other's property aspirations. Ultimately, at the end of the day, property is one huge asset that you can never escape. It's going to be a big chunk of your balance sheet. And it is usually commonly funded together, both parties having to pay it together. So I think it's important to have that conversation about both property aspirations, but of course you can get a sense of how it is like through their childhood.
I think property, aspirations is one thing, but at the end of the day, it's about being realistic, what you can afford. These days I actually have quite a lot of conversations with clients about property for some reason. So property, two main things that we look at. One is the upfront costs. So you've got your lump sum down payments, your stamp duties, your renovation costs if you need. That can be quite substantial, depending again on your property aspirations. And the other one is your cash flow. So you want to be realistic about your cash flow. Typically we always recommend, try to keep it within 30% of your monthly income.
30%.
30%.
Okay.
Yeah. Of course, if you want, you can stretch it further. But, of course, you do have your other expenses. Yeah. And it's quite dangerous if you overstretch yourself, because you never know, where, for example, a pandemic hits. What happens if your income?
Everything is pandemic these days. It never was a thing.
Yeah.
Continue.
Before pandemic, it was 08.
Nobody cared about pandemics in the past.
Before pandemic, it was global financial crisis.
Whatever the crisis might be.
Yes. I get your point. I get your point, yes.
Yeah, so I think you always want to be realistic. You want to be prepared that, if something happens, so even if the income stops, would you have, a buffer to sort of sustain these, say mortgage repayments as and when they come along, even if, for a short time, you don't have an income or you don't have a job. Yeah, because once you start, stretching yourself, once you start planning based on, I'm going to have an increase in my salary, then you start thinking about, affordability from a future income point of view, which is not here yet.
So there's a lot of expectations adjustments, right? In that sense, right? You have all these aspirations. First time I hear property aspirations, but okay, if you have aspirations of you want to own a big property, but then there's some realities that then you have to kind of balance that off, right? So fundamentally, it comes back to the question of trade-offs. What are you willing to trade out of it, right? And maybe in a housing setting, people are more willing to trade, right? I mean, here there's not a lot of choices, but what about kids, right? Kids is that touchy thing that, like, because we're talking about family planning today, right? So we definitely have to talk about this thing called like kids. Like, how many kids? What are the costs? What's the reality? So for everyone that's trying to look at, having kids or entertaining this idea, what do they need to think of?
So in terms of, I think, the expenses, same thing, I suppose, what do you aspire, your kids to have? Education is usually the big one.
Give us some frameworks. How to aspire.
So I think education, for example, what sort of preschooling would you expect to provide for your children? Because today it's such a wide range. You can go from government type of preschool, childcare arrangement, a few $100s, or you can go to international schools. You can go to sort of much higher end private preschooling, and the cost can go up to $2,000 to $3,000, and that's not a small sum. 1 year talking about 24 to 36,000.
Montessori, those kind of thing, right?
Yeah, correct.
I was like, wow, Montessori, new name, huh? But the 2,000-3,000 a month.
Yeah, correct. So I think you really want to get on the same page as to firstly, can you afford? Secondly, I suppose, why do you want to spend this money? Is it, how important is this to you? Yeah, because, we're talking about 30 over thousand a year. You then talk about, you're actually trading off a lot of other things in your life.
But that's probably not the biggest ticket, right? When it comes to, education. The last one, which is the university, is the thing that more people, I think, they grapple with.
Yeah,
so because everything in between is relatively public funded, right? Like primary school, secondary school, JC, or if you get to a poly, it's a little bit more expensive, more private, but it's still not crazy. But hey, when you get to the uni, right? Okay, do you guys know the inflation rates for uni fees? And then some thoughts there.
Internally, we use 6% in terms of the inflation.
Every year.
Yeah, internally, in terms of data. I mean, in terms of
The
the
data
data
you
we
track.
run, we track. We have been using 6%, and you're right. The tertiary education piece is a big one, and it's good to start talking about it as early as possible. Wow, we know that for guys it's 21 years down the road. For ladies it's 8. If you have a daughter, 18 years down the road.
Wait, so are you telling me that, right, to plan for family, even all the way up to like tertiary education, I should talk about it right from the get-go with my partner?
I think it's warming up. You have to warm up to the topic one. Right? I mean, Chin talked about preschool and all this. It's something very close to you. Yes. You can kind of envision and you can see. And also that it's also a phase, right? When
cannot every day talk about cafe movie, right? Must go into the
iPad.
Yeah. Because you will have friends who have went ahead of you. Yeah, right? You have friends, you click on
front runners.
Yeah, the front runners, and then they go first, and then you look at then these are then IG story, you see, move on already. Okay. Congrats and move on. Then these are avenues that opportunity to start talking about preschool. Of course, the uni part, right? The tertiary part, I think sometimes it's useful to have a third party to come in. Because, like you say, it's not a topic that you on the get-go you talk about it. But sometimes if you talk to a financial advisor, then this kind of topics start coming to you because, of course, sometimes it's on sale, sometimes it's more of the planning part. But then the topics start coming in. If you say, let's aspire our children to be locally educated, I think it's quite subsidized. Living expenses is also not very high in Singapore. Rather, if you manage your expectations, I think that is quite okay. Of course, we do have clients who are, educated overseas, and then they see the benefit of being exposed to multicultural, to being able to live independently away from your family, and then they come back being a more resilient person. So then they might say, let's give our children the option to be able to study in Australia, UK, US. Then again, we go back to trade-off, because you want to be able to put aside that X dollar of money at a certain age, and not forgetting that these are goals that you concurrently need to plan towards together with your retirement.
Yeah, sounds
right?
like a lot of things.
So when we put all the money together, when you put the sums together, when we put a calculation together, and then we chart it out, then it becomes quite stressful. If
just hearing, I already like, wow.
Yeah, 老
So,
瓜.
wow, so many things to look forward to, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so then there's this part about choice, essentially. Because like what you said, right, it's so overwhelming. There's so many things to think of, from kids, education, retirement, housing, all these things, right? But for a lot of people, when they go into a union, these things are not like, I don't really care, right? Maybe so. Do I really want kids? I don't know. Question mark. Do I need a house? Yeah, I need a house. That's something that I know I need.
Yeah.
Do I really know when I'm gonna retire? Nah, I don't know. So for a lot of people, it's not a thing. It's not very high up their priority in terms of management. But possibility is, maybe 5 years down the road, I will entertain this kid idea. Right? So then how do I manage this from a financial standpoint?
Yeah, I think you're right, lah. I think for layman, it's something that is not in your face yet.
Yeah.
Sometimes as financial planner, we also ask ourselves, are we the oddball who keep thinking about our future? Having to chart out all these things to make sure that
Having
things are
to
all
chart
right.
out, I think you're oddball. Really, it's a
Yeah. So it's like,
myself.
are we the only group of people who are in Providend
yes.
talking about all these things, and then the world out there is actually just happy with
Yeah,
themselves?
just living your life right. A bit
Yeah.
25, you just kind of came out, you jump a few career, and then you jump a few jobs.
Yeah.
And then you settle down, it's like, okay, maybe this is my career, right? And then you get a partner, and then you entertain this house. But it's nobody like, wow, everything also chart,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why at the start I always say, I think the partner who want to start talking about all this has to deserve a big pat on your shoulder. Respect, because they have the question themselves. Am I the oddball who things are okay? Why should I ask this and start talking about all these things? And sometimes during our sessions, our clients about discovering about their life, their priorities, and all this, we ask questions, and they do share that these are things that we don't talk about on a day-to-day basis, right? But it's good to have somebody sit down and talk about it and verbalize it. I think that's most important. You're right. The part about not thinking yet, I think, is common. We often feel that we are odd, but we continue to be the oddball to try to advocate people to start thinking about it, because life throws us will throw curveballs, and we want, at least you don't do anything, but at least you are mentally prepared to handle it if it happens. Like you say, kids, right? Suddenly come, what to do? If you don't have the info kit on hand, you start scrambling for what to do, what to buy.
I think it's quite normal also. We always say planning is good because, earlier when we talked about tertiary education, you can see that it really ranges, very, very big. What at the end of the day you want to achieve. For example, some people say, I don't even want to provide or support my children's tertiary education. He can take a loan. I've taken a loan. He can take a loan. I don't need to build up. I focus on my retirement. There's no wrong also. While on the other end, you have people who want to, cater for all the way to medicine, to the US. Of course, individually, you want to understand why that is so. Because I've seen before in certain cases, somebody who is educated in the US doesn't want the children to go to the US to be educated. Yeah, so while we always advocate doing planning, again, it's very, very normal to not have a clear idea, exactly what sort of goals you're trying to achieve. So if that's the case, we always would recommend, at least, you still want to be prudent. If you say, I'm not sure whether I would be having a kid, but in the future, maybe say 3 to 5 years time, we might start thinking of children. So you already think about, okay, then what sort of expenses would I, start to incur? So even, things like your, don't even talk about upfront costs like delivery, your ongoing cash flow, you need to buy diapers, milk powder, then after that, tertiary education, not tertiary education, the preschooling.
Preschool.
It's already at least, 500 to 1,000 more. So at least, you want to set yourself this buffer in your cash flow. And at least, you save it up for sort of, potential future goals. So it could be like a backup or like a separate pot of money that you're building
So
up.
it's like a dumping fund, right? You just put the money there, like collectively you know that you're going to build a future, but you don't know what you're going to do with it first. Maybe after you accumulate like 50, 100,000, you have enough of this place, and you want to buy some like small little house in some part of Thailand and you live there. It's also fine. You can get something like that, through that. So you're trying to tell me to, as a union, you guys should, put some money aside for all these kind of future things that you have not planned for. Because the fundamentals of planning is you must have a goal.
Yep.
But because the life is fluid, you don't have a goal yet. But till then, you should still kind of put some money aside in that sense.
Yeah, I always feel that rather than, when the time comes, then I need to cut down my expenses. I
Yes,
need
it's
to
very
scramble.
painful because
It's
you
painful.
gotta make up for the time, right? Especially
Yeah.
like what Yong Cheng say, got kid already, that kind of.
Yeah.
You gotta make up in a short time. It's gonna be very hard. Can you paint us some picture? Like what is the average cost, if I'm trying to get a kid, right? You're not trying to get like okay, I already got a kid, then we're gonna go through this whole process, maternity, delivery, and hospital, everything, right? What is the average cost? We're not talking about Glen Eagles or what, right? We're just talking about average. Right, so help me paint a little bit of picture there. What is the color there? Like how much does it cost to have a kid here? Just to get it
Okay.
out,
Yeah.
and make sure the mom has some confinement time, not the raising part yet. Yes.
So I have a 2-year-old going 3. We went through the public hospital route. But it's a hybrid. So you can have the public hospital route whereby you go through, say, NUH, KK, and then you don't get to choose your gynae, which means you let the doctor, whatever schedule, they schedule you. That's much cheaper. But I don't know the cost. I haven't really calculated. But for myself, I went through the hybrid, which means I choose NUH as the hospital. You can also choose KK, but I choose the gynae. So my wife and I, we decide, I think we're comfortable with this gynae, and then we become kind of like a private patient in a public hospital setting. I think in total, if we add it all up, it's about 3,000 to 4,000 plus. Of course, then the next level is where you, right on onset, you go to the private gynae, private hospital. That will probably be 10 at least. Good to put aside about 10. 10 is assuming you have a smooth, normal delivery. Of course, if it's the emergency sec, you will have maybe, of course, choi, then no pregnancy complication, extra day of inpatient staying in hospital, that could rank up the cost. So that's, I would say that's the ballpark. So that's just delivery, really.
Yeah.
You talk about stroller, they talk about this, I think another episode.
I can share my experience because I'm on the other side. I'm all the way till private hospital, tried to do normal delivery but ended up emergency C-section. So that's the most expensive. Okay, I track every single cent of my expenses, and I know
As I should expect, you plan everything.
I'm not normal, as you can tell. But I spent about 20,000. 20,000, including your pre-delivery checkups, medicine and all that. 20,000 is on the higher range, but of course, if everything's smooth, public hospital, normal delivery, probably 2,000, a couple of thousand, or even lesser.
Okay, that's cool.
It's quite okay. It's quite okay. It's quite heavily subsidized. If you go the public.
Of course, they want you to have more kids, right?
Yeah.
So then the question will be about maternity insurance. Then, do I need to, get maternity insurance?
Okay, so maternity insurance is essentially insurance you buy It's kind of like a one-off insurance that covers the wife and the child in the event of, say, pregnancy complication. And then there are certain criteria. Of course, I'm not a doctor, so there are certain criteria that you have to meet before they pay out the lump sum. So typically, you can buy a maternity insurance that pay out a lump sum of 5,000, 10,000, usually not more than that. And it's a term plan because you pay and then you get cover, and you can buy it as early as when your wife, the pregnant wife, is 13 weeks all the way, and it covers you beyond after delivery. So it's a term plan essentially.
What's the average cost?
Usually it's broken down into different bands. So you have the pre-35 year and the post-35 year kind of premium. But the payout is the same, 5,000 or 10,000, depending on how you pay. Like, for example, it can cost about 300 for $5,000 lump sum payout. Then it can actually go some range towards $1,000. Yeah, but of course the question that you ask is need or not.
Yeah.
Right? Then again, we ask ourselves, if you were to pay a premium to get a $5,000 lump sum, can you self-insure? Always we go back to the question of you buy insurance to insure. If there's an option for you to self-insure and you can have the ability to do so, then do you need to get insurance to cover, right? So I think that's the question. If one were to say that, actually, I think I have emergency funds who can cater for this kind of scenario, then I might not need the expenses to fork out the expenses to buy the insurance.
So what kind of scenario in terms of complications?
I would say that maternity insurance, there are different ways you can get it. There are the standalone one where you just purely buy
Yeah, that was actually my next question.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of package deals these days, right?
Yeah,
and I'm
yes.
generally very adverse to package deals. It's like how Singtel sells you Wi-Fi, phone, SMS. Like, who the hell uses SMS? These days. So I think in the financial space, there's a lot of structured products that go down this path also.
Yes.
And then they will tell you that, this is more expensive because you cover maternity, cover blah, 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 everything. I was like, really? Do I need all these things? I don't even know what's my life going to look like.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So what is the stand? Should we buy insurance separately, even through this process of, childbearing and then like facilitating the kid and all that?
So the maternity insurance are usually sold either standalone. You buy and then once the period is over, your insurance coverage cease. All right. So you can also have the option to buy as a rider with a whole life plans, IR investment linked policy, sometimes maybe term plan. Yeah. So typically, if you buy it as a rider, your premiums will be lower because bundle, right? When you say bundle, usually the package is better. I think the question to ask ourselves is that if today, do I need the main plan, whole life investment linked policy, or a term plan for my child? Even though the maternity insurance, if I deem it's useful for me, is it worth paying? I think first thing first, whether you want that maternity insurance in the first place. If you want, then you think about whether buy alone or you buy a bundle. Of course, from Providend standpoint, we see insurance as a form of protection. For a child, I think the need to protect them for death is not that high, because assuming if the child were to pass on, they don't have dependent. Yeah. In terms of critical illness as well, I think to us, when we look at critical illness, it's really about actually a form of income replacement. If I can't work, I need certain X dollar to help me tie over this period. Again, if we think about it from a child perspective, there's really no need for it. Unless you want to buy a whole life plan really as a gift for them to ensure insurability for the rest of their life. But that being said, you might not need to buy a very big plan. Yeah, maybe a small plan will do. If you need a maternity insurance. In our opinion, I think for a newborn, for a kid, I think the first thing that is very important to do is to quickly get them onto the integrated shield plan. Yeah, I always tell my clients, once it's the 35th, 36th week, start filling out the form already. Because once
Tell
the
me
child
more,
is born,
why?
No, I think because whenever we buy into hospitalization plan, I think the fear that we have is always, are we going to be excluded from certain coverage from pre-existing illness? Yeah, so sometimes after the child is born, things can be very fluid. Yeah, so you want the child to be covered in full as soon as possible. Yeah, so you can always pre-populate the forms, fill, sign, predetermine the name, your name. Then once the IC number is ready, then pop, and then send it to your agent to get this done as soon as possible, so that the child can get insured as soon as possible. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So integrated shield plan is essentially a hospitalization plan for the kid.
Yes.
That's about
a
it.
level
Right?
up from
because a lot of
initial
names. I want to get some clarity here.
对对对
Okay.
Yeah, I can share my own journey. So I've got a 6-year-old this year. When my wife was pregnant, we're considering maternity insurance. So same thing, it's going to cover $5,000 to $10,000. Is it going to cripple me? That's the first question. But I think maternity insurance, more than the $5,000 or $10,000 is going to cover, is this guaranteed insurability of this whole life plan. And then the next question, as what Yong Cheng says, do you need this whole life plan? So typically, these are the questions you want to ask yourself. Do you really need this? In some cases, there's no real right or wrong. So say, for example, I've also met couples who say that, although we say that the child is not an income earner, if the child passes on, we're not losing any form of income. But the couple say that, well, if my child really passes on, I won't be in the mental capacity to be working. So I wish to have, for example, this
That
sum
is
of
a
money.
perspective, yes.
Correct. So I always thought that's a good perspective. That's one way to think about it. If that's really something that you feel that, okay, you want this lump sum to cover you for 1 year so that you have this option to stop working, then by all means go for it. But of course, it's never free. You have to pay for it.
Of course.
Yeah. So then coming on to the second part on the hospitalization plan. The thing is, I've also looked into it. Does a maternity insurance plan, does it give you guaranteed insurability for a hospital plan? And the answer was no. And personally, I made the mistake of not getting the plan immediately for my daughter. So my daughter has a small heart, a slight heart murmur, or small hole in heart. So after that, it was quite difficult to find an insurer that that's willing to accept her, number one. And finally, we got one, but it was with exclusions embedded into the policy.
Okay, so two things I want to ask, right? What is guaranteed insurability, and how does the exclusions work?
Okay, so exclusions mean that if you have pre-existing
So
conditions,
because of the heart, so then they
Yep.
will exclude some of these things that they will protect.
Correct. So they'll say that if it's a heart condition, we are not going to cover it. Yeah, so that's an exclusion. If they straight up reject your policy, then means that you can't even buy this insurance. So if it's guaranteed insurability, means that before your child is even born, they will say that we will definitely allow you to buy this policy without medical underwriting for this whole life policy. Yeah, but usually it only applies to whole life, so it can be part of this package that you're pre-buying before your child comes out.
So in that sense, guaranteed insurability means the insurer will definitely insure all the cases underneath without exclusions in that sense.
Yep.
Okay. Just on the basis that because the kid haven't come out, so there's no other kind of medical realities that they handle with, so then they will insure you.
Yep.
Okay. But then the whole integrated shield plan, which is the hospital side of things, that is how does that work? Yes.
It covers you for hospitalization expenses.
Okay, for the kid.
Yeah. So you can imagine. Okay, so you imagine heart condition, right? So if the kid has to go into hospital for treatment, then if he or she is not covered or being excluded from heart condition treatment, then the shield plan, the integrated shield plan, will not pay for the treatment. Yeah. So there's a lot of out pocket, Yeah. But of course, if the heart condition has not really accelerate into or deteriorate into a severe critical illness, then the whole life plans will also not pay out. So you're stuck in nowhere. Of course, then there are a lot of out-of-pocket expenses.
Okay, so clarity here: the integrated shield plan is essentially a hospitalization plan for
Correct.
the kid, right? So if the kid goes in and out of hospital based on whatever
The framework,
complications,
yeah.
the framework, then they get covered.
Correct.
Right, whole life essentially is how all life insurance works, right? You must extend to some critical illness or some disability, some very big case scenario, something happened, or some death scenario, then there will be a payout. You're based on the premium insured.
Yep.
That's how it works. Okay.
Based on the sum insured.
Okay, based on the sum insured. Okay, well, very good clarity. Okay, cool stuff. So then I think there's a recurring theme here, right? choices, like all these different things that people have to choose with, because now you're no longer alone. And you guys keep talking about communication, right? So give us some tips and tricks how to communicate with your partner, to come to common consensus.
My sort of philosophy is, again, this mindset shift. You want to tackle anything in your life from a perspective that it is us versus the problem. You don't want to tackle it from the perspective that it is you versus me. It is your goals versus my goals. You want to think of it as, let's say there's a problem, and even if the problem is that, I want something, you want something, but how can we work together as a couple to tackle this so that there's family harmony? I think that is very important. Yeah, it's always us versus the problem. Yeah, and once you have this mindset, I feel that things get better. You tackle the problem objectively.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we've covered a lot, right? From coming together, setting expectations, understanding each other's aspiration, some communication tips, even the whole transition with kids, maternity, and all that. I just want to thank you. Thanks for coming on. I think we all learned a lot of good stuff. And anything else, they can contact you through the Providend website. Okay, take care, guys. See you. Awesome.
Thanks, Andy.
Thank you.
Hey, I hope you learned something useful today and truly appreciate that you took time off to better your life with the Financial Coconut. Knowledge is that much more powerful and interesting when shared, debated, and discussed. Join our community Telegram group, follow us on our social, sign up for our weekly newsletter. Everything is in the description below. And if you love us, want to help us grow, definitely share the podcast with your friends and on your socials. Also, if you have some interesting thoughts to share or know someone that you want to hear more from, reach out to us through hello@thefinancialcoconut.com. With that, have a great day ahead. Stay tuned next week, and always remember, personal finance can be chill, clear, and sustainable for all.
Okay, so we asked everyone these questions, right? These last 3 questions. So keep it short, sweet, candid. And one of the first question is, what is a life principle that you hold close to?
Okay, so for me, very short and sweet, my sort of core principle is that we all run our own race. The most important thing is that you want to be very clear on your purpose and priorities. And then, you want to be very intentional in your decisions and choices that aligns well with this purpose that you have.
Okay, so purpose-driven choices, essentially.
Yes.
Cool.
For me, I think it's about being able to make meaningful contribution to the society. I think in any way that I can. And,
Okay, the next question is, what is a personal finance advice that you feel needs to be further propagated?
For me, I'm not sure whether this counts as sort of a personal finance-related advice, but I always feel that critical thinking is very important. Especially when it comes to evaluating financial or investment decisions. In general, I think that we can always apply a little bit more skepticism and a little bit more objectivity. So even I like to talk about investments. Let's say we bought an investment, it has made money. Is it due to skill or is it due to luck? We just want to be very critical, and because there's so much information and opinions out there, you want to be very critical in filtering out the noise from the truth. One area that I think like I said, people don't really pay so much attention is this role of luck. Yeah, so what's the track record? If you have done well picking stocks for 3 years, does that mean that you are a fantastic stock picker? And does that mean that going forward, your decisions will continue to yield good results? I think that's something that most people should think more deeply in.
Good. I like the luck. Yes, really, really. I did one episode about the 3 things you need to be a good stock picker. The first thing was luck.
Yeah.
And then I got a 1-star review on Apple, and so I shout out to the guy that gave me the 1-star review. I still remember you just saying. But anyway, yes.
It's just unlucky you got a listener like him.
1-star. Okay, anyway, it's Yong Cheng.
So for me, I think we are living in a world where there are a lot of information, and there are a lot of information we self-select, especially in this social media age. So I think the idea that I want to really propagate from a personal finance point of view is intentionality and your needs, versus desire and what other people are having, right? So like I say, I think in this social media age, we see a lot of people having things, doing things, but then I think we need to sit back and ask ourselves whether, are these things that we need? Are these things that is people are happy having, but maybe once I get it, I might not be happy. So intentionality towards how we look at our money, how we spend our money, I think that's one thing I think it can be better propagated in a very messy information age.
Nice. Cool. Okay, last thing. What is something that you're putting additional focus on in your life now?
I think I would say I'm putting a lot of focus on my work right now. Sometimes maybe a bit too much. Yeah, so I'm
Boss not,
the healthy skeptic workaholic here, huh?
boss not here.
Boss not here, okay. Don't need wayang.
yeah, I need to get my boss to listen to this.
But first he will hear you say he's a salesman.
Yeah, but I would say I'm trying to find that right balance, setting boundaries so I don't neglect other areas in my life, like family, like parents, and just enjoying the simple life in general.
Nice. I'm learning the boundary part also, yes.
I think especially COVID, the boundaries start to blur quite a lot.
Yes. In the past, you can just kind of leave your work on the desk, right? But these days, you can't.
Yep.
Where's the desk?
Yeah.
You?
I think it goes back to being intentional. For me, I think the focus, I think I agree it's about setting boundary. But when I'm in that boundary, I think I want also to be optimally in that boundary, meaning that I'm meaningfully engaged. Because there might be times I'm guilty I might be playing with my daughter, but somebody texts me, but I might not be meaningfully engaged with her.
Nice.
So it's something that I want to be intentional about, and it's something that I think it's never gonna be a finished product. I think it's something I need to continue to work hard to be in.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. Thanks, guys. Appreciate our time together.
Thanks, Reggie.
Nice.
Do routine accounting tasks make you feel invisible? Then step up and earn your Certified Management Accountant certification. Become a CMA and you'll master the 12 most critical practice areas of management accounting. Skills that will make the routine tasks of accounting a thing of the past and strategic challenges a thing of the present. So step up, earn your CMA, and show you have the skills it takes to be seen and recognized. Discover how to become a CMA at cmacertification.org.